In Season 17, The Simpsons produced the episode Girls Just Want to Have Sums, a story that threw Lisa into the world of boyhood at Springfield Elementary. That episode, along with a few others, gave the season a transformational feel, this short-term identity crisis that questioned who these characters truly are. Now comes along Season 18, who picked up that ball and ran with it. But, unlike its older brother, Season 18 was less interested in the personal, character-driven angle. This is a year all about achievement. It's about taking these characters, trying their hands at something new, and seeing if they can hang. Season 18 is The Simpsons' year of hidden talents. Now, when it comes to the middle seasons, you often hear one of two criticisms. That there are either too many marriage crisis episodes, or there are too many blank gets a job episodes. This is a blank gets a job season. I haven't checked the later lineups, but this might be the most job-heavy season of all time. It's like they were all playing Final Fantasy V Advance when writing this thing. There are 22 episodes in Season 18. Let's count how many of them contain new jobs or side hustles. Ready, set, go. Homer temporarily becomes a mob boss. Marge starts a carpentry business with Homer as the front. Homer joins the army. Moe becomes a poet with Lisa's help. Homer becomes an ice cream man while Marge sculpts popsicle sticks. Gil loses his job and eventually becomes a realtor. Homer gets press ganged into working on a ship. The Spluckler kids start a singing career with Krusty. We see Homer's many jobs growing up in a documentary. Homer becomes a paparazzo, Homer sells mattresses, Homer becomes a volunteer firefighter. Santa's little helper joins the police force. Bart and Lisa work for CTU at Springfield Elementary. And Kent Brockman loses his job and goes independent. If we throw in Bart becoming a jazz musician and Homer a soccer ref, that only leaves 5 non-job examples. And 2 of those are anthology episodes. We're certainly seeing a more topical approach, where it's less about transforming characters' core personality traits and more about them discovering new interests. Like sure, Homer likes frozen treats and is a Viking at sleep, but what does him selling ice cream and mattresses say about his character? It doesn't. These are clearly vehicles for wacky occupational adventures. They'll contrive a reason to put Homer in these ridiculous situations and then have some fun. Bingo bango, fun was had. Because many of these are hidden talent plots, they can feel random and arbitrary. Like, who would have guessed that Cletus's kids are great singers, Fat Tony's kid can cook, or that Marge is an expert carpenter? It can feel like they're picking something vaguely the opposite of the character's usual shtick. Would we be more or less surprised if Marge was awesome at, say, plumbing or roofing instead of carpentry? It doesn't matter, the specific character angle is less important. Carpentry is a logical pick because they want to tackle the gender dynamics of this blue-collar profession. Same with Bart's inexplicable giftedness at the drums. It's just a means to piss off Lisa. As a result, character and relationship arcs tend to be shallower overall. It's hard to get the audience super duper invested in Moe and Lisa's friendship because they're an uncommon duo fighting about something they've never pursued before. The story isn't built upon anything organic to them. These sorts of episodes often conclude with some kind of public grand gesture to resolve the characters' differences. Bart dedicates his benefit to Lisa, Moe writes a poem to Lisa, Marge makes Homer a statue, Declan Desmond makes a video tribute, Lisa apologizes to her dad. Heck, even a miserable episode like The Boy's a Bummer ends with the whole town making it up to Bart. Eventually. The scale of these stories tend to be larger overall, featuring conflicts with society or specific groups. Krusty, for example, ends up in 2 different revenge squads this year. We get another mafia turf war, even a silly B-plot about cardboard boxes ends in a war against the Springfield shipping industry. There's an uptick in stories exploring American institutions, hitting up the police, the fire department, the army, and counterterrorism. Somewhat surprisingly, the police end up coming off the best, which must be a first for the Springfield PD. What, did Dick Wolf showrun this one? You can definitely feel the post 9/11 Iraq War influence in Season 18, often thanks to Cletus and Brandine. Doing an entire 24 parody is very much of those times, with the terrorism themes and the torture commentary. Thankfully, Bart didn't go full Jack Bauer on Nelson. The War of the Worlds parody in the Treehouse of Horror ends with an extremely pointed critique on the war in Iraq. I always forget about this part when rewatching this Halloween segment. I'm always like, oh yeah, The Simpsons actually went here. The Simpsons had been criticized for their muted response to the then current events, and we're definitely seeing it trickle in again. Still, I don't consider Season 18 to be an especially satirical year of The Simpsons. The only quote-unquote issues episode is the Kent Brockman season finale, which takes a closer look at the media. When I said The Simpsons were topical this year, I meant they're simply covering a topic, rather than scrutinizing it in a deeper way. They're more observational in nature. For example, Little Big Girl features a teen pregnancy, but doesn't have much to say about the subject. It's merely a plot point. Other topics, like firefighter theft, overfishing, and army youth recruitment, serve as similar points of conflict. To be fair, the army recruitment stuff veers closer to proper satire, but it's hard to take this military commentary seriously when it's about the army invading Springfield during a war game. Structurally, Season 18 feels like a throwback to the Scully era, with its propensity to do Act 3 danger plots. They'll do stuff like Homer riding a dangerous roller coaster, Homer and Bart capsized at sea, a toxic cloud at school, Bart and Willie tied up underwater, characters nearly burning to death. There's a bunch of car chases and vehicular combat too, with Bart taking the keys in 3 separate occasions. Generally, these moments of perils aren't played as wacky as in the old days, and tend to be more logical conclusions to the established storyline. Oh, and while we're on the topic, have you ever noticed how much fire is in Season 18? They set like 4 different fires this year, and they are all plot important. It's weird, Season 9 was like this too. It's like every 9 years, The Simpsons is drawn inexorably to the flame. Getting nervous about this upcoming season. Speaking of fire and awkward segues, Season 18's fiery passion also applies to its romance. Earlier I said this is a blank gets a job year and not a marriage crisis year, and I'm doubling down on that statement. Good news, everyone! Homer and Marge barely fight this year. Their biggest disagreements are over the carpentry business and the statues, but neither devolve into full-blown crisis mode. I don't know if Al Jean was reading No Homer's complaints, or if they took a short break, or what. I suspect they did consciously make an adjustment, because Homer and Marge are more amorous than ever. These two are making out and snuggling their way through Season 18, often interrupted by Gil or their kids. In fact, there is a whole B-plot about theirs and Lovejoy's sex lives, if you feel like watching The Boys a Bummer for some reason. Aside from Homer and Marge, we get a wedding between 2 golems, a Grandpa Selma marriage, and the Bart-Darcy wedding scare. Okay, I didn't say all these romance stories were the most organic, just that there was a bunch of them. Also, if I'm reading this parody right, I think Bart fell in love with Nelson this year. That Nelson sure is a jealous boyfriend. As for ye old jokes department, things haven't changed much year over year. Stylistically, a Season 17 joke isn't much different than one from 18. We're definitely measuring in millimeters rather than inches. The only major trend I picked up on is the writer's newfound love of nicknames and list jokes. Like, listen to all these funny jazz nicknames, and these army nicknames, and Cletus's kids' names, and these pacifiers. Oh, and here's a bunch of funny books. To be honest, these kinds of jokes have always driven me crazy. They always feel like the writers refusing to throw away that long night of joke pitching, and they just throw them all in there. They definitely have some funny wordplay jokes, and some that make me go, but their lists are generally boring, dull, tedious, monotonous, and repetitive. However, Season 18 does have some genuinely great and stylistic comedic sequences, where they get to show off their animation crew. We get POV sequences, like the Bart and Nelson Goodfellas walk to the cafeteria, listening to Corn in the corn maze, Marge rushing home, and traveling through the vents of Springfield Elementary. Honestly, all of 24 minutes is full of visual splendor with all the split screens they gotta do for the parody. In Yokel Chords, they do this stylized Dark Stanley storybook that is absolutely gorgeous. Also, shout out to this Looney Tunes homage with this helicopter. They capture this kind of silly cartoon chase so perfectly, and I can't believe I forgot about it. They're kinda crushing it with the stylistic homages this year, whether it's a Pimp My Ride montage or recreating a White Stripes video. I admit, I totally didn't get this reference, but it's so interesting to look at, it doesn't even matter. The best kind of homage. We are still firmly in the Al Jean music montage era. Sometimes they do just slap on a semi-related pop song and call it a day. But we're getting a better mix of montages and stylistic homage. I always felt like Gene and Reese were excellent at the pop culture stuff back in the day, and it is still a strong point in season 18. You can tell the Raimi Spider-Man movies were still hot, since they did 2 different J. Jonah Jameson parodies this year. Somewhat counterintuitively, the characters don't watch quite as many TV shows or movies this time around. I guess when you're living in the parodies, you don't need to watch them on TV. The most memorable ones are the Army recruitment movie, Krusty dubbing Itchy and Scratchy, and the Soccer Riot documentary that goes so cuckoo bananas. Oh no, it's the Virgin Mary! On the meta humor front, episodes tend to run hot and cold. We'll get little references here or there, like Homer shooting Mr. Burns, the Tracy Ullman Simpsons, or Lisa commenting on her B-plot intersecting with the A-plot. But sir, I'm flaming. Probably the best moment of Little Big Girl is Bart crashing his way through the opening credits. But May 20th, 2007 must have been meta episode night on The Simpsons, airing both 24 minutes and You Can't Always Say What You Want. 24 minutes is a self-explanatory parody, but do you all remember how season 18 ends? After Kent sells out, they literally do a joke where Fox overdubs and censors them from criticizing the network. God, what a bizarre way to close things out. Haven't seen something like this since Lester and Eliza. I will say, unfortunately, that the couch gags are generally weak. I don't usually cover the couch gags, but these are scraping the bottom of the barrel. I can just feel us heading toward the overly long couch gag era. In terms of guest stars, this was a year that tilted back towards celebrities playing themselves. This is mostly due to the poetry episode, where they got authors Tom Wolfe and Gore Vidal, as well as Michael Chabon and Jonathan Franzen, who both won't shut up. Other episodes, it would be like, whoa, it's Metallica, Dr. Phil, some asshole, James Patterson, Stephen Sondheim, Betty White, Ronaldo, Stephen Hawking, some asshole, and Ludacris. Season 18 is not a very Hollywood season, aside from the Spuckler Kids episode, but these celebrities showing up added that flavor. We did get some guest stars playing original characters, like Joe Pantoliano, Michael Imperioli, Richard Lewis, Fran Drescher, Meg Ryan, Peter Bogdanovich, and John Lovitz in his most forgettable role. We got 3 celebrity spotlight episodes with Natalie Portman, Eric Idle returning, and Kiefer Sutherland. Kiefer even returns for the 24 parody, along with Mary Lynn Ricecub to play their original roles. Same with J.K. Simmons for J. Jonah Jameson. But enough Spider-Man talk and celebrities. I have kept you all waiting for far too long. It's time for the secondary characters Stockwatch. Moe regained his sole claim to being king of the secondary characters, partially thanks to a spotlight episode with Lisa. But Moe is scattered all over season 18 with small cameos. We're seeing that Mike Scully technique, where Homer plots will usually stop in at Moe's for a quick check-in. This is a bounce-back year for Krusty, playing key roles in the Treehouse of Horror, the Spuckler Kid Spotlight, and the 2 Revenge Squads he joins. We get some decent Chief Wiggum material thanks to Santa's Little Helper and Springfield Up. However, he's not quite as omnipresent as usual and totally sat out many episodes. This is a sneaky good grandpa year, despite what you might think of as marriage to Selma. They did a better job than usual in keeping him in the picture. Other characters, like Kent Brockman, Gil, and the Lovejoys, got spotlight episodes or B-plots, but were otherwise used sparingly. Of the spotlight episodes, Cletus is probably the biggest winner, who is slowly worming his way into more storylines. After an extremely pathetic Principal Skinner year last time, I am happy to report that he made a comeback, thanks to the higher focus on Springfield Elementary plots. So many of Bart and Lisa stories involve the school, which gave him plenty of opportunities to get involved. Honestly, you could say the same about this entire group of characters. Milhouse had a strong follow-up year after dominating season 17, getting his own anthology segment and several small cameos. He even got to ride around in a dumpster with Homer. Groundskeeper Willie delivers so many memorable jokes, definitely a bright spot when he appears. And of course, we have to give Nelson his flowers, who gets the Haw Hog couple spotlight and several other key moments. I always love that part of the box fort battle when he swoops in and fights them all off. Good stuff. Now, the biggest loser was never in doubt. It's Flanders. This is just a terrible year for Ned. The only episode he really takes part in is the Kent Brockman Spotlight, and that is more Flanderized nanny state garbage. Even his kids are growing tired of him at this point. Ned can't participate in many of these blank gets a job plots as easily, so he mostly sits on the sidelines. This is another irrelevant year for Mr. Burns, although we've seen worse in the past. Mr. Burns is around, he has a couple of decent jokes, and occasionally serves as a plot point, but is certainly a victim of Season 18's disinterest in the power plant. Can't have Mr. Burns in the way of all these new Homer jobs, after all. As for the biggest winner, well, this is a first for the series. We have repeat champions, because it's Jimbo, Dolphin, Kearney again. I kinda wish I hadn't picked them for Season 17, as Season 18 is somehow even better for them. Obviously, 24 Minutes deserves much of the credit, but you'll notice, so many episodes this year feature them in some way, often being decapitated. When you get 2 anthology segments about bullying, it's gonna be a solid year for these 3. Moving on to the Simpson family, I think it's appropriate we change things up and lead off with Bart. So we all consider Homer the main character of The Simpsons, but I always think of Season 18 as a Bart year, mostly because of what a roller coaster it was. Bart's stories often revolved around his uneasy or unexpected relationships. He dates a pregnant teen in one episode, fends off a jealous BFF in another, and his mom invades his online presence. He enters the unfamiliar world of jazz and gets bitten by a tiger. Even Santa's Little Helper bites him this year. Then we have The Boy's a Bummer, where the whole town absolutely hates him and he hates himself. It's no wonder there's a Bart therapy B-plot this year. This kid needs it. And even that one ends in an awkward breakup. He still gets in his typical pranks and some cool action moments, but this is easily one of the strangest Bart years ever. You know things are upside down when he's working for the school and beating up Nelson? I don't know. I actually respect what they did with Bart this year, because at least it's not boring, but this kid deserves a break. Lisa, on the other hand, had one of her most useless and irrelevant seasons ever. Problem with her is that many of her spotlights focus on relationships we don't care about. She's helping Fat Tony's son's passion for cooking, turning Moe's ramblings into poetry, discovering the Spuckler kid's talent, and assisting in Kent Brockman's comeback. She's like the assistant character this year. Even in 24 Minutes, she lands in a mostly thankless analyst role. And the less said about Lisa's B-plot, where she fakes having indigenous ancestry, the better. To be fair, she does have the 2 B-plots with Homer, which are both fun and memorable, and I'm a big fan of that box fort she makes with Bart. Lisa does get some time to shine in Season 18, but almost entirely as a supporting player. Marge's Season 18 is defined by her inner frustrations at her place in life. We got to see her branch out more, learning new skills like carpentry, sculpture, and surfing the web. There is this underlying sense that she doesn't belong in these worlds, and has run-ins with Homer and Bart over them. Or she'll have Gil invading her world, and Marge struggles in saying no. These are all very organic concepts for her repressed personality, and gets to play on her curious naivete. Unlike Lisa, who got stuck playing second banana, Marge's stories tended to give her more independent agency. She got plenty of chances to prove something to herself and the audience. Marge's adventures aren't exactly glamorous, but I like the mix that they gave her this time. Homer's year was obviously defined by the sheer number of jobs he took up. It's like they gave every weird story to Bart and gave Homer all the basic ones. I do like the tenor of his characterization in general. They hit an appealing balance of wacky food monster, everyman father/husband, and angry buffoon. His only plotline people might object to is his firefighting burglary, but I think it's a good idea to keep a small taste of his moral questionability. This scene sucks though. The biggest problem with this Homer is that there isn't any depth to any of his adventures. Homer gets to experience a bunch of new stuff, but mostly as a tourist. We didn't get to learn much about him as a person. I think that's my biggest issue when it comes to Season 18 as a whole. The characters have become sightseeing tourists in their own show. Like, it's cool that this was a year of hidden talents, that we got to see many characters discover new passions and achieve a level of success. I could never accuse Season 18 of letting its characters stagnate and play the old hits. However, the majority of these new endeavors are so surface level in execution that they don't leave much of a lasting impression. In their quest to be more topical, the character arcs got sidelined. There are so few proper relationship stories that I have to desperately latch on to a Grandpa Selma romance. I confess, of the first 20 seasons, this is the one I revisit the least often. Season 18 doesn't get much play on the old Disney Plus these days. I like Season 16, and have a begrudging respect for that odd duck Season 17, but Season 18's episodes just feel like a bunch of stuff that happened. Maybe that's it. These feel like episodes that happen to the characters, not the other way around. Once the novelty of the topic has worn off, I'd prefer to watch an episode that gets deeper into the character relationships or has sharper satire. Why watch G.I. Joe when I can watch Simpson Tide? At least that episode has an international incident. I do respect some of the big swings they took this year, that the show is still willing to play around with the format. From a characterization standpoint, these are the characters we know and love, but very few of their adventures take advantage of what we love about them. That being said, Season 18 still has its standout episodes, and they deserve to be recognized. So next time, I'll be back for the top 10, where I'll give you that Season 18 cheat sheet. I still have no idea what's going to be in the last couple of spots, and have a whole bunch of episodes I gotta rewatch. Come and see which of Homer's jobs sneaks its way into the number 10 spot. As always, thanks for watching.